Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. So in this video I wanted to talk to you all about advanced vibrato techniques. So once you have initially learnt how to do vibrato on the violin, whether you're doing wrist vibrato or arm vibrato, either or, it doesn't really matter. There are a few kind of little advanced techniques that you can do with vibrato to bring that to the next level. So this is going to help you manipulate pieces, give them a little bit more colour, even more tone, even more feeling and that kind of thing. So it's just like when you learn anything, you always learn the basics and you always learn just, how to do it. And then after that, you can start getting a bit fancy and you can start getting smarter with it all. However, before I do go into showing you some advanced techniques, I just want to make it clear that you really should have gotten down the basic vibrato first. So, I mean, suffice to say that, to be perfectly honest, if you haven't got the hang of normal vibrato or vibrato in its kind of initial state, then you're not going to be able to do any of these advanced techniques anyway, because you need to be able to do vibrato. You need to be able to sustain vibrato for a decent amount of time. So I do have 3 videos which I will have linked underneath this video that I have done years ago in the past on my channel, talking about how to do vibrato. And I do have 3 videos, and I think like the earliest one off the top of my head dates back to about 2012 or so, up to about 2015 or 16, something like that. But those 3 videos in combination with each other are fine. So I don't really feel the need to remake those videos. Everything that I'm saying in those videos, especially the latest one, is sufficient enough to teach you vibrato, as I think the latest video I've got coming up in 4 different squares and with different kind of angles and slow motion and side angle, above angle and that kind of thing. So if you want to actually learn how to do vibrato initially and you've never done it before, go and watch those videos. Probably the latest one, the 3rd one, is probably going to be your best bet to learn to learn vibrato. But you might find that watching all 3 in combination is going to just help cement and just put that information in your mind a bit better. So let's assume that you can all do vibrato and you've been happily chugging away and you've been doing vibrato for many months and it isn't a problem, blah, blah, blah. Now we want to get a little bit fancier with the vibrato and we want to do something just a little bit more with it. So even though these kind of advanced techniques aren't necessarily categorized as such, nobody's kind of come up with any kind of specific fancy words for them, I've just put words to them myself just so that I can teach them to you a little bit better. Some of them you may actually even be doing. It depends how experienced you are, it depends how long you've been playing and that kind of thing. So if I actually just play some vibrato, so that is just kind of bog standard vibrato. By the way, I do wrist vibrato, I do not do arm vibrato. It doesn't really matter whether you do wrist or arm. I just do wrist, I cannot do arm. It is just the way I've been doing it since I've been playing all those years ago. So it doesn't really matter whether you're doing wrist or arm, you can still do these techniques. It's, you'll just apply it in the way that you do. But once you've got that hand movement down, you just need to know what the advanced vibrato technique is and kind of just how to achieve it. So that was just an example of just normal vibrato. And before you do move on to these techniques, you want to be able to keep that vibrato up for a fair while. For example, you get the idea. So it isn't a problem and you're not kind of doing a little bit of that and then you've got to stop. So you want to be able to keep that wrist movement nice and fluid and the vibrato to be flowing through. Then you're ready for these techniques. So the first one I want to talk to you about is wide vibrato. See, these are all kind of common sense really. So wide would just be that instead of just letting your hand, the motion of your hand go backwards and forwards, you're kind of you're lengthening that. So if your hand is moving within this distance here, it's going to be moving a little bit further. So what I mean by that is So it's a little bit more work to do that. So we don't really use wide vibrato too much. It can give you a little bit of a sweeter effect. You would want to be very, very careful when you use that, but you might want to use it if you want to just broaden a passage, for example. So don't confuse wide vibrato with slow vibrato. So it would be the equivalent of you walking down the street at your normal pace, and you're taking the normal length of stride at whatever speed you're going at, but you want to go at that same speed, but you're taking wider strides. So then you're finding that you're having to work a lot harder to keep up to the same speed. So if you're going left, right, and your strides are kind of this big, then you want to be going left, right at the same speed, but your strides are now this big. So this is the same with vibrato. If your vibrato stride is this big, your vibrato stride is now going to be this big, but you want to keep up the same speed of that vibrato. So this is normal, just normal bog standard vibrato. This would be wide. So again, it's wide would just be used very selectively. So it does take a little bit of practice, and it is quite fatiguing. That's probably not the best example for it, but you might want to experiment with that if you want to, as I say, lengthen out a passage, or maybe you want to build it up to something. So that's wide. Okay, the next one we've got is slow vibrato. So, I mean, that does what it says on the tin, really. So I use slow vibrato quite a lot. So when I'm finishing a passage, for example, so I'm almost kind of fading it off to nothing in a way. And then you're also fading that away with the bow. But you can slow that vibrato down if you're doing something else other than getting to the end of a passage or the end of a piece. It doesn't have to be the end of the piece, it could be in the middle, and you could just sort of be ending that particular passage before you move on to something else. Or you just might want to slow it down just to give it a sort of sense of finalization. But be careful when you do slow it down, because it will finalize it for you, so it'll make people think that it's come to the end, because it doesn't sound quite right if you slow it down and don't soften the bow as well. Actually, it's very difficult for me not to actually soften the bow at the same time as slowing down the vibrato. It just automatically is just something that I want to do. So just be aware of that I feel the best place for slow vibrato would be at the end of a passage when you're slowing the bow down and you want to finalize something. Okay, fast vibrato. Again, it is what it says on the tin. So there you go. So you can slow that bit down there. So fast vibrato is going to give you a lot of passion, and I feel that works best in passages where you're building it up. Otherwise, there's no point having real intensity. It's going to build passion, build excitement, build tensity, anticipation and all that kind of thing. So it is just about going just a little bit faster, really. But I find when you do fast vibrato that you want to go in short bursts. They always sound best. Rather than keeping your fast vibrato constant, you sort of almost want to be doing fast, relax. So you're going from fast initially to give you that level of anticipation. Obviously, along with the bow, you want to give the bow a little something as well. You'll probably find that the bow will just naturally want to do what the left hand is doing anyway. So I wouldn't be too worried, about the bow. You will just bow faster because it's just a natural kind of human reaction. but I would give it some intensity and then bring it back to sort of normal vibrato, if that makes sense. So and also is where you can feel that I'm just giving the bow a little bit more of a martelé at the attack at the start of the bow. You know, so something like that. That also sounds really nice when you're doing it low on the G string. But one thing to be aware of when you're doing fast vibrato, that it is very fatiguing on the hands. It's as is heavy vibrato, which we're going to be getting to in a second. So just be careful, you know, how you apply that and how much you do of that. And again, you know, you want to you don't want to be doing these all the time. You just want to be sort of using them strategically throughout your playing. And then the next one you've got, which we can combine number 2 and number 3, which is fast and slow. So again, it's like you're starting off very passionately, very fast. So then you're slowing down with the bow. So that's just kind of a fast and slow there. So moving on to number 5, heavy vibrato. Now, I feel this personally works best on the G string. Now, heavy vibrato, in my opinion, would probably be a combination between fast vibrato and wide vibrato. So again, you're going to be working very, very hard with this. So let me see. So heavy is just a thicker version of wide and fast. So you want to speed it up as well, so you get that, but also you want to just put a little bit, feel like you're just putting a little bit of weight behind it. So where you're just going fast, you know, heavy is more. So you have to concentrate a little bit more to get the heaviness of the vibrato. There's a very subtle difference, I feel, between heavy and fast, but it is there, and obviously it will depend on the appropriate passage that you're playing that with and what you're applying it to. And then you've just got light vibrato. So your hand isn't so heavy, you're not putting so much effort into your hand. It's probably a combination between sort of doing it fast and maybe just the normal vibrato, but there's just a little less emphasis on the fingers and on the hand. And you know, I know all of these kind of differences are very, very subtle. All of these changes and all of these types are very subtle. But once you know vibrato, and you start doing all of these, you'll know what I mean. And I kind of feel like it's the subtle differences that you're using with vibrato that makes the difference between, you know, a piece that sounds nice bit of vibrato, and a piece that's perfectly and incredibly well executed. So next time you watch a professional on YouTube or whatever it is, Maxim Vengerov, Itzhak Perlman, David Garrett, whoever it is that you're watching, next time you watch them, check out what they're doing their vibrato and see if you can see any differences or any nuances or any changes that they're doing in their vibrato. And I bet you will see them, and I bet you will recognize them now that you've watched this video. So like I said, it's just all about finding the appropriate times to use vibrato and just being clever enough to manipulate that vibrato. So as you're going along and you're working on the piece of music, for example, and you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, I want to do some up bows there, some down bows, I want to phrase it like this, I want to phrase it like that, you know, and all that kind of thing. Why don't you think about how you're going to apply vibrato rather than just sticking vibrato on and just getting on with it? Why don't you think about how you're going to do that? It's like you've created a piece of music and it's in black and white, and you're going to colour it with vibrato, but by doing your bog standard, regular, normal vibrato, you've kind of given it one colour, you know, you've just coloured it in red. But by using all the other different types of vibrato, wide, slow, fast, fast and slow, heavy, light, whatever, all of that, and combining it in different ways, then you're adding a myriad of colours. So you're putting a rainbow of colours now into the piece of music, and that is going to finalise it. That is really what is going to top it off, because at the end of the day, vibrato, a piece of music without vibrato is pretty much just rubbish. I can't really think of really any situation where you wouldn't sort of be putting vibrato on anything, but just think about now colouring that piece of music with the vibrato, and be aware that you can manipulate it. But as I say, I want to put a very, very, very strong emphasis on the fact that you must be able to do vibrato before you do this, because you won't be able to do it. And if you do try and manipulate it before you can actually do vibrato, you will come unstuck, and you know, it's going to potentially ruin the original vibrato. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. This isn't actually one that I've ever done before, one that I've been thinking about doing for a long time, but just never got around to doing it. So I hope this has helped you, and I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.